segment, I'm at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois.
The Museum of Science and Industry is located on 5700 South Lakeshore Drive in Jackson Park in the Hyde Park neighborhood between Lake Michigan and the University of Chicago. The Museum of Science and Industry opened in 1933. It is housed in the former Palace of Fine Arts from the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. Also, the Museum of Science and Industry is a place where people learn about science, like how cars, trains, boats, and planes work, and water cycles, and etc. Also, the Museum of Science and Industry has trains to learn about, and one big steam locomotive that was too heavy to be moved inside, while the museum rearranged the exhibits to be moved from the outdoor to inside. And the big steam locomotive was the heaviest steam locomotive and to be on that was part of the museum and was too big to fit inside, so got moved to the Illinois Railway Museum in Union, Illinois. And the trains and transportation related exhibits, and I think that all were moved inside the building. And the Museum of Science and Industry has a Burlington Zephyr put in the entryway where we buy tickets, and near the gift shop of the lobby, and was too wide to be in the Great Train Story, so the Great Train Story had enough area to have the trains to be learned about, and there were 7 in the Great Train Story Gallery for education. Till 2015. These trains left the museum and went to other places. Some were auctioned. 3 steam locomotives and 1 trolley left the museum, and only 3 are left in the gallery for educational, and 4 trains remain in the museum. And the museum once had 9 trains till 1995 had 8 when the exhibits got moved inside. Now there are 4 bigger trains left in the museum, and some other train related exhibits also left the museum, which was a replica cab of a Pennsylvania Railroad K4 462 Pacific, and the display case and steam locomotives drive wheels where you'd push the button and make them go. Also, the Museum of Science and Industry has an HO model railroad, and the Museum of Science and Industry's model railroad was the largest of its kind in the world when it opened in 1941. The railroad covered 2,340 square feet of floor space and was built in Q scale, which paired the 145 scale trains with our 2-rail O-gauge track. The various scenes on the model railroad illustrates the role of the railroad within U.S. industry and agricultural throughout the desert Southwest. It included 1,000 feet of track and 40 switches operated by an automatic control board. When it closed in May of 2002, the model railroad had been in service for 6 decades, serving as one of the most well-known and beloved exhibits in the museum. It had several enhancements over the years as new technologies helped railroads to operate more safely and efficiently. It also is one of the first railroads in the country to run diesel engines, as they replaced steam engines. Today, the museum's railroad exhibit, the Great Train Story, and the newer layout is 50% larger than the original railroad and has the ability to operate more than 30 trains rather than the original 10. The Great Train Story follows the winding railroad journey between Chicago and Seattle, passing through the Midwest, the Plains States, and the Rockies, the Cascades, and into the Pacific Northwest. The more than 30 trains on the track are involved in industries and diverse as grain, commodities, raw materials for manufacturing, consumer goods for important and export lumber and tourism. Also, the Museum of Science and Industry. At the Museum of Science and Industry, there's so much to learn about trains and interesting history to learn about and science to learn about as well. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 was built by the Budd Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1934 and is a stainless steel Burlington Zephyr. In front of it is a shovel nose and is an unseparational train set. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 is known as the Pioneer Zephyr. Also, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 is the first successful streamlined passenger train in America. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 is made of stainless steel. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy wanted a flashy train to get a depression of wary public interest in traveling again. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 was the first of many successful Zephyrs. The Pioneer Zephyr had four cars permanently articulated together on shared tracks. Also, there are currently 3 cars on the Pioneer Zephyr. The fourth one is not on it, and it was lost in the yard a long time ago. The Pioneer Zephyr was introduced to the public on a 13-hour, 1,000-mile record-setting speed run from Denver, Colorado to the Century of Progress Fair in Chicago. Extensive preparations were made for top speed on the run by diverting other trains and restricting grade crossings. The Pioneer Zephyr entered regular service in November 1934 between Kansas City, Missouri and Lincoln, Nebraska. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 was seen at the Chicago World's Fair when it arrived in Chicago, Illinois, where it made its 13-hour trip from Denver, Colorado to Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 had a 26-year active lifespan, servicing a number of routes in the Burlington system. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 was retired in 1960 when it was doing the St. Joseph, Missouri to Lincoln, Nebraska run. Also, the Pioneer Zephyr came to be part of the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois, where it is today, and it is a good way for education. And Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 was outdoors before being moved indoors, inside to its final resting spot. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 was next to the submarine when displayed outside. Now, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 these days is seen in the main lobby of the museum, and you can see exhibits around it. Check out the cab, but only in view from one spot, and even check out the mail sorting compartment. And every 20 minutes, tours of the interior from the baggage room to the observation area happen. Also, I did wonder how they got this train set in the museum. It may have been kind of difficult. Maybe it was too big to fit through the parking garage, or maybe they had to get it under the clearance without a scratch, or maybe the Zephyr was lowered in by a crane to the lower lobby. But other than that, I can try to find the real answer. Also, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 9900 is here at the Museum of Science and Industry for all to see and enjoy. Empire State Express 999 was built by the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad shops in West Albany, New York in 1893 and is a 440 American type steam locomotive and is a C-14A class steam locomotive. Empire State Express 999 was used for the New York Central Railroad and also the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad in the early days, in which it was intended to haul the railroad's Empire State Express train service. Empire State Express 999 is also claimed to have been the first in the world steam locomotive in the world to travel over 100 miles per hour. Empire State Express 999 entered service in 1893, making a trip from Syracuse, New York. The Empire State Express was recorded traveling at 102.8 miles per hour on May 9 and at 112.5 miles per hour on May 10 between Batavia, New York and Buffalo, New York. If true, it would have made Empire State Express the first object on wheels to exceed 100 miles per hour. Following the record-setting run, the world's fastest locomotive toured the country and was displayed at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, Illinois. After the exposition, Empire State Express 999 continued to provide a passenger and freight service for many years. Empire State Express 999 returned to Chicago, Illinois in 1933 for the Century of Progress World's Fair, and again from 1948 to 1949 for the World Chicago Railroad Fair. Eventually, technology and innovation in the railroad industry limited the Empire State Express 999's use. In May of 1952, following a reenactment of its record-breaking run, Empire State Express 999 was retired from service. Also, Empire State Express 999 has came to be part of the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois for display, and it was outside the museum before being put in like its final resting spot with the other exhibits that were outside till 1993. Also, Empire State Express 999 was also moved inside and elevated to the floor where the gallery Great Train Story is located, and then put in this spot. Also, you can view the cab and walk onto the footplate, and you'll see that there's a mannequin on the locomotive in the cab, and you can even hear the locomotive chugging as you hear a speaker with the sound effect. And the mannequin is the engineer, and the name is Charlie, and he talks about Empire State Express 999's history as well. Also, Empire State Express 999 is the sole survivor of the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad steam locomotive, and it's preserved at the Museum of Science and Industry today.
What you see right behind me is this rocket.
This is a replica of the Stephenson rocket that was built by Robert Stephenson and Company in Darlington, England in 1931. The original was built by the company in 1829. Also, the Stephenson rocket is an 022 type steam locomotive. The type is unknown and is the 4072nd steam locomotive built in the factory. Also, the locomotive is named Rocket as well. The original Rocket won Stephenson 500 pounds at the Rainhill Trails, a competitive competition set up by the Liverpool and Manchester Railway to determine the best motive power to employ on the railroad. 10 locomotives were entered, but only 5 competed. The Rocket was the only one to complete the 3-day trials, starting on October 6, 1829, over which it averaged 12 miles per hour and achieved a top speed of 30 miles per hour. Stephenson won, consequently awarded the contract to build locomotives for the Liverpool and Manchester. Also, there are basically 3 replica rockets that are still around today, and there are 2 that can be found in the United States, including the one here at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois. And there is also one at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. Also, there are 2 more over in England, and there is also only one that operates for all to enjoy and see. Also, this replica of the rocket came to be part of the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois, and seen here in the gallery Great Train Story. And as seen here on display, you can also activate the drive wheel, which are the ones up front, and push the button and see it go.
Excuse me.
Okay, what you see right here, this is a steam engine. This is the 999, how it works. So it says here, turn the hand wheel counterclockwise to see how engine number 999. So let's just turn it counterclockwise. There are the wheels turning. Chicago Short Line Railway 532 was built in 1934 and is a replica cable car. Chicago Short Line Railway 532 was used for the 1933 Century of Progress. Also, Chicago Short Line 532 was used to haul visitors down city streets in Chicago, Illinois, and the sides on the poles of Chicago Short Line 532 says State Street. Also, Chicago Short Line 532 is an open-air car. Chicago Short Line Railway 532 was then retired, then came to be part of the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois, and can be found in the gallery Great Train Story, and you can even step aboard it and even sit in the seats, and it is there for all to enjoy and see. Okay, so we are walking among the model railroad. So there's a BNSF train. All this looks well detailed, as I can see. And there's another train passing by. That's an auto. There's a grain elevator. There's some mountains. This looks like it's in Montana. Let's have a look. Railroads around the world. Excuse me. And also, here's a bridge. That's one big heck of a bridge. There's a trestle bridge on the mountain. There's a mountain. Union Pacific. freight train. No, piggyback semi-trailer. Let's follow this train. And that looks like it, that train over there is unloading cargo. There's a coal train. Let's walk around. And there's a cargo ship. Oh, and there's an Amtrak passenger train. Oh, and here are some buttons. Operate the crane mover. Let's see. It just unloads that semi-trailer off the cargo ship. And then it will reload on the cargo ship. Oh, and this one says, blow the harbor pilot and blow the horn. You could hear it. Oh, and there goes the crate, pressing the same button to unload the crate. And don't need to hold down the button. It can go to work. Port of Seattle. And this is, that's the Seattle Space Needle right there. And this is the city of Seattle by the sea. So let's walk around some more. Oh, and here's a forest timber company. And there's a tunnel. See the train? Wow, brilliant. Oh, and here's a waterfall going down. And I believe this is in Montana. Here's the train crossing the bridge. See the train go through the tunnel. Wow, so amazing. And that rock there. They're blasting the tunnel. So push this button right here. You could hear sound effects. And that's how it's done. And here's some more. And here's some trains moving around. And that BNSF diesel is just going back and forth. Excuse me. And here's a BNSF train just pulling cargo, pulling those double stacks. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for earlier. And here's the Union Pacific double stack train coming past. And here's this is the city of Chicago. You could tell by that elevated track. Almost can see everything. And there's the Chicago Metro. And I'll show you it moving in a little bit. But let's take a look at the city of Chicago. Okay, you might have seen those kids push the button earlier, so help get the Metro underway, so push of the button. Do it again. So I say let's just wait. There she goes. Let's watch her come back again. Oh, the signal just happened to be red. Don't worry. Might be a goof up. This is well detailed here. Okay, here comes the Metra back again. Here it is pulling back into the station. Let's check out the city of Chicago. Excuse me. Excuse me. That down there is an underground subway tunnel. And that's the elevated train, so I'm going to zoom in a little. Excuse me. And there's another L. This is well detailed. This looks like the actual city of Chicago we're in. So, I don't know if I could find Millennial Park in this layout. Hard to see. This is like, oh, there's the tall tower, which used to be called the Sears Tower, which is now, I forgot what it's called. Yep, you could tell that it's touching. It's that's the closest tower to the airplane wing up there, and also that's the L track. Maybe let's wait for a train to come. Any minute soon, a train should come by. While I wait, I'm gonna, oh, here comes, didn't need to. Let's just discuss. Let's watch the L come by. There it goes. This is like the actual city of Chicago, except the L track itself doesn't have doesn't have one track. But this model railroad does have one track. But the real L track in Chicago has two side by side. Let's look around some. There's a drawbridge. Excuse me. So this says here, push to operate the drawbridge. So there it goes. That allows, the drawbridge itself allows ships, river boats to come through. That might be the Chicago River. And there's a grain elevator, and there's a army ship, and here's a rural suburb area, it looks like. And yeah, let's look at this for a little bit. Looks well detailed. And there's a train backing up, and when it reaches that station building at the very end, it's going to go the other way. It's a Northern Pacific diesel, Great Northern coach, and an Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe coach. It has, sometimes they put new sets on it. So we've reached the end. We've reached the spot where we started, so that's all you saw.